Confetti nanodrones theory. Picture the scene. The final buzzer sounds, the crowd erupts, and a dynasty is cemented. In that moment of pure, unadulterated triumph, the air fills with a blizzard of color. A massive, vibrant cloud of confetti descends upon the victors, a chaotic, glittering storm that has become the universal symbol of ultimate success in sports. It's a tradition we've seen 1,000 times, a harmless, joyous spectacle. But what if it's not? What if, hidden within that storm of shredded paper and mylar, is something else entirely? A secret so advanced, so insidious, that it operates in plain sight, using our most celebrated moments as the perfect cover. This is the core of a theory that's been whispered in the darker corners of sports forums and social media, a theory known as the victory swarm. It posits that championship confetti isn't just decoration, it's a delivery system. A delivery system for a swarm of microscopic autonomous drones designed for one specific purpose: to harvest the DNA of the world's most elite athletes. The concept sounds like it's ripped straight from a blockbuster science fiction script. The theory suggests that each individual piece of confetti, or at least a significant percentage of them, is not paper at all. Instead, they are sophisticated nanodrones, engineered to be indistinguishable from the real thing in weight, size, and flight pattern. A single piece of confetti revealing tiny, intricate circuits under a microscope. These aren't just passive observers. The Victory Swarm drones are supposedly equipped with a suite of advanced microsensors. As they flutter down and make contact with an athlete's skin, uniform, or even just the sweat particles in the air around them, they perform an instantaneous scan. The goal is to collect biological data: skin cells, hair follicles, sweat residue, anything containing the athlete's unique genetic blueprint. Once the data is acquired, it's either stored in onboard memory for later collection during the cleanup process, or, in more advanced versions of the theory, transmitted in a low-power burst to a nearby receiver hidden within the stadium's infrastructure. So, where did such a wild idea even come from? It didn't appear out of thin air. Like most compelling conspiracies, its origins are murky, likely a perfect storm of unrelated events. Some trace it back to a speculative article in a niche technology journal discussing the future of environmental monitoring using smart dust. Others point to a misinterpretation of a patent filed by a defense contractor for autonomous swarm surveillance. But the most likely spark was a single anonymous post on a fringe message board. The post, now legendary in these circles, simply asked, "With all that confetti falling, how would you even know?" That simple question was the seed. It was screenshotted, shared, and rapidly cross-pollinated with growing public anxieties about genetic privacy, government surveillance, and the seemingly magical abilities of nanotechnology. It gained traction because it felt just plausible enough to be terrifying. Proponents of the Victory Swarm theory point to what they call circumstantial evidence. First, there's the sheer, overwhelming volume of confetti used. We're not talking about a handful of paper. We're talking about hundreds of pounds, sometimes even tons of material blasted into the air. Confetti cannons firing massive plumes of paper create a dense, visually chaotic environment. This massive scale, they argue, is the perfect way to hide thousands, if not millions, of nanodrones among the legitimate chaff. The cost and logistics of such a large-scale deployment would be astronomical for just a celebration, but for a high-stakes intelligence operation, it's a justifiable expense. Second, they cite the seemingly random dispersal. While the cannons are aimed, the final resting place of any single piece of confetti is left to the whims of air currents. This randomness is the perfect camouflage. A targeted drone flying directly at an athlete would be suspicious, but 1,000,000 pieces of paper fluttering down provides plausible deniability. The drones don't need perfect navigation. They just need to get close enough, and with that many in the air, contact is a statistical certainty. Finally, there's the critical issue of oversight. Once that confetti hits the ground, who is tracking it? It gets swept up, bagged, and disposed of. Cleanup crews sweeping up massive piles of confetti could easily be part of the operation, tasked with retrieving the data-laden drones. There's no chain of custody, no one examining the debris for technological anomalies. It's the perfect crime, executed and erased in a matter of hours. This, of course, leads to the biggest question of all: why? Why would any organization go to such incredible lengths to secretly collect athlete DNA? The motives, according to the theory, are as varied as they are chilling. One leading idea is a black market for genetic data. Imagine a world where the genetic code of a generational talent like LeBron James or Tom Brady could be sold to the highest bidder. Biotech firms could use it to identify the genes responsible for fast-twitch muscle fibers, incredible endurance, or rapid recovery, potentially leading to performance-enhancing gene therapies. Foreign governments or rival sports federations could use it to build a blueprint for their own state-sponsored athletic programs, trying to engineer the next superstar from the ground up. Another motive is predictive analytics and financial gain. A clandestine organization, perhaps a shadowy syndicate of betting firms or insurance companies, could use the DNA to predict an athlete's future. They could screen for genetic markers associated with career-ending injuries, like a predisposition to ACL tears or concussions. This information would be priceless, allowing them to make fortunes betting against a player or adjusting insurance premiums.
Then there's the even darker possibility of competitive sabotage. By analyzing an athlete's full genetic sequence, a rival could potentially identify or even engineer a personalized biological agent that exploits a specific genetic weakness, taking them out of the game at a critical moment. It's a terrifying new frontier of high-tech cheating. But before we get lost in this rabbit hole of espionage and intrigue, we have to pull back and ask the most important question. Is any of this actually possible with today's technology? Or is the victory swarm just a fascinating, fear-fueled fantasy?
Plausibility. Nanotech ethics. The idea of a sky full of DNA-stealing confetti drones is undeniably captivating. But when we move from the shadowy world of conspiracy to the brightly lit labs of science and engineering, the picture becomes far more complex. The first and most significant hurdle is the sheer technological challenge. For the victory swarm to be real, it would require a convergence of multiple bleeding-edge technologies at a level of miniaturization that is, for now, largely the domain of science fiction. Let's break down the immense scientific barriers. First is the physical drone itself. While we have made incredible strides in creating micro-electromechanical systems, or MEMS, getting a fully autonomous, functional device down to the size and weight of a piece of paper confetti is a monumental task. A 3D animation showing the complex layers of a nanodrone would reveal a need for a processor, a power source, a sensor array, and a data transmission unit. Fitting all of that into a flake that can flutter convincingly is beyond our current capabilities. The power problem alone is perhaps the biggest deal breaker. How do you power 1 million microscopic computers for their mission? Traditional batteries are far too large and heavy. Proponents of the theory might suggest they harvest kinetic energy from their fall, or pull ambient power from radio waves in the stadium. But the energy density from these sources is incredibly low. It would be nowhere near enough to power a sophisticated biological sensor and a wireless transmitter.
The propulsion and navigation systems present another seemingly insurmountable issue. For the drones to be effective, they can't just fall randomly. They need to guide themselves, even subtly, toward the athletes. This would require microscopic actuators or thrusters, which would in turn require more power and processing, creating a vicious cycle of engineering impossibilities at this scale. Without a guidance system, the vast majority of the drones would simply be expensive, high-tech litter. Then there's the scanning technology. Collecting a DNA sample is one thing. Analyzing it on the spot is another entirely. Current DNA sequencing technology, like CRISPR-based diagnostics or PCR, requires controlled lab environments, specific chemical reagents, and time. The idea of a sensor that can perform an instantaneous, non-invasive genetic scan from a fleeting touch of a sweat droplet is, at present, pure fantasy. And even if a drone could collect this data, how would it transmit it? A radio antenna powerful enough to send a complex data packet through a noisy stadium environment filled with tens of thousands of other wireless signals would need to be a certain physical size, a size far larger than a speck of confetti. The physics of radio waves simply don't allow for it. So, from a purely scientific standpoint, the victory swarm hypothesis collapses under the weight of its own technological requirements. The science isn't there. Not yet, anyway. But let's engage in a thought experiment. Let's say the technology exists. This brings us to the second major area of analysis, the ethical and legal minefield. If such a program were real, who would be behind it, and what would the implications be? The list of potential culprits is a veritable who's who of powerful entities. Governments are an obvious suspect, potentially using the DNA of elite athletes as a research base for creating enhanced soldiers, or as a biometric database for tracking persons of interest. Imagine a world where a star athlete who is also a political activist can be tracked anywhere by their unique genetic signature. Massive corporations, particularly in the biotech and insurance industries, would have a vested financial interest. A shadowy boardroom with figures looking at a glowing DNA helix could become a reality, where the future health and career of a young athlete is determined and monetized before they even sign their first major contract. The very integrity of sports would be annihilated. Rival teams or nations could use the data for an unprecedented competitive advantage, tailoring training regimens or even illegal strategies based on an opponent's genetic predispositions. The implications for the athletes themselves are horrifying. It represents a fundamental violation of their privacy and bodily autonomy. Their very biological essence would be stolen and commodified without their knowledge or consent. This could lead to a new insidious form of genetic discrimination, where players are cut, traded, or denied contracts based on a secret analysis of their DNA. Laws like the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act were designed to prevent such abuses, but they were written for a world of consensual blood tests and doctor visits, not for a sky full of invisible data thieves. Ultimately, we have to apply Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is most likely the correct one. The reality is that championship confetti is produced by specialized event companies. It's made from biodegradable paper and shiny mylar cut into specific shapes and loaded into air cannons. Its purpose is purely aesthetic. The reason this conspiracy theory is so compelling isn't because of the evidence, but because of what it says about our modern anxieties.
We live in an age of ubiquitous surveillance, where our data is constantly being collected by corporations and governments. We are seeing breakthroughs in genetic engineering that are both amazing and terrifying. The victory swarm theory is a modern myth, a story we tell ourselves that bundles all these fears into one tangible, dramatic narrative. It reflects a growing distrust in the institutions that run our world, and a sense that technology is advancing faster than our ability to control it. So, while the science says that championship confetti is just confetti, the theory itself serves as a powerful cautionary tale.
It's a thought experiment about the future of privacy, consent, and what it means to be human in an increasingly technological world. The victory swarm may not be real, but the questions it forces us to ask most certainly are. What do you think? Is it just a harmless shower of paper, or could our celebrations be hiding a deep, dark secret? The truth, as they say, is often stranger than fiction.